There's a major problem with black suburban kids, but I'm not one of them. See, I'm from the hood, Harlem to be exact, but I was raised in a two-parent household with good parents who took me to Disney World almost every year. And honestly, growing up, I never wanted to admit it, but low-key, I was a Cosby kid. Or at least, that's what my ex used to call me, because I was kinda mixed, not suburban, but not too hood either. And because of my background, I can really say,
it take a certain type of man to teach, to be far from hood but to understand the streets.
That's right, I'm far from hood, but I understand the streets. You see, the streets didn't raise me. My parents did, but I spent my time in the streets because I had to go outside.
They scared to come outside.
And no amount of love and affection from my parents could prevent me from getting caught up in street shit. Mama, I gotta go to school. Daddy, you taught me to stand up for myself, and you can't be there for me 24/7. So when it was time for me to deal with the gangsters, the drug dealers, the robbers, the stealers, I did what any man would do in my position. I ran my fucking ass off. You shitting me? Ain't no way you gonna smoke weed, carry guns, and keep up with me.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Your legs ain't do.
I'm joking. Well, kinda. But growing up in the hood, you knew who to play with and who not to play with. What's understood doesn't need to be said. And more importantly, I grew up in my hood. So the people who really were about that life never really bothered you because you were like family to them. So when I got to college, to my surprise, you wouldn't believe how many people were faking, acting like they were tougher than they were, which is one of my biggest pet peeves. Suburban kids that try to act hood. See me, I went away for school, but you should have seen all of the people not from New York City claiming New York City, when we all know you from the good part of Long Island or upstate New York. 9 times out of 10, the reason they did this was to claim that they were from the hood. They tried to use the slang that they heard the rappers using. They tried to dress like them, walk like them, talk like them, even steal their jobs. Look at Lil Tootie Raw.
What you doing out there? What, like what, bro? I need you to be
Shit,
real.
like trapping. That's like what?
Man, bro, you don't need to be doing none of that shit, bro. I need you to come home, bro. I miss you, bro. You need to come home.
So he's out there trapping when he doesn't have to, because his daddy is rich as hell, and apparently he's making good money.
Lil Tootie, you the sickest in Baton Rouge. That's what you like? That's what you like? That's what you like, huh?
Like $1,500 a day.
But $1,500 a day ain't worth his life, him going to jail or getting robbed. It's just stupid, especially when his dad can pay for anything he wants. I knew a guy in college just like Lil Tootie. Parents paid his rent, tuition, and gave him money for food, but they wouldn't pay for him to wear expensive clothes. So what did he do? He became a trap star and got caught, kicked out of school, and got a record all over some Gucci shoes. So I never understood why the suburban kids wanted to act like gangsters, because my response was always, gangsters rarely go to college. And why do you want to be poor when the goal has always been to get out of poverty? Why do some black people need people to think they're from the struggles? Me personally, if I grew up in a big house, I would show off my big house, especially to you brokies. But I don't fully blame them, because for some reason, it's not okay to be from the suburbs in the black community. You're just considered not down if you sound educated because you went to a good school. He talks white. It's also not okay to leave the hood and move to the suburbs. If you do that, you're not real, you're selling out, according to some black folks. And I'm just trying to figure out, how did my goal of becoming successful also equate to me changing? I'll go back and visit my hood, and according to them, I've changed.
People look at you strange saying you changed, like you worked that hard to stay the same, like you're doing all this for a reason. And what happens most of the time, people change. People change around you because they start treating you different because of your success.
So my first problem with black people from the suburbs is that they try to act like they're hood, and I rarely see Brad or Chad doing that. No, they just love repping their country club and gated community. And most of the black suburban kids that I've come across either try to act too hood or what they consider black, or in their attempt to try to fit in, they try to act too white. They become the token black guy, the one telling the racist black jokes just so they can fit in, so that people can like them.
Get busy with them blacks, nigga. Try to run down, you gon' catch a shot, nigga. Hey, yo.
My next issue with black kids from the suburbs is some of you think racism doesn't exist. And let's be honest, you not experiencing that comes from you living in a good neighborhood. Police mostly harass people in low-income areas. Sure, there's more crime there as well, but they give out a disproportionate amount of tickets in low-income areas because they know most people living there don't have the power to do anything about it. I'm afraid of the police because of how I've been treated by the police. 90% of the things police do wrong don't get talked about unless you get deleted, which is why NYPD paid out $115 million in 2023 for misconduct. But how many of those police officers got fired? Probably 2, if I had to guess. The other 9.9% of the things police do wrong get covered up. But camera phones and body cams have started to change that, even though for some reason they can cut them off. Policing in this country may be the easiest thing to point to that I've had disagreements with black suburban kids about. But racism in general is always up for discussion when talking to black suburban kids. Because just like the gangsters from my hood never harmed me, well, no racist in their right mind is gonna be racist to Judge Philip Banks' sons. They know better, and if they don't know better, well, they're gonna find out the hard way that you're one of the good ones.
Dad, who is in charge here?
I am.
Let those kids out.
These kids are car thieves.
What's going on here?
Can I help you, sir?
I'm Henry Firth.
Good news, Mr. Firth. Your car is safe and sound, and we've got the perpetrators.
Those aren't the perpetrators. Those are my partner's son and nephew.
Partner?
Legal partner. I've got a few questions for you. When you got this alleged confession from these 2 young men, did they have a lawyer present? No, because I'm their lawyer. Did you notify their parents? No, because we're their parents. So, officer, don't tell us to wait, and don't tell us to sit down. Just open that damn cell and let those 2 boys out of there, or I'm going to tie this place up with so much litigation that your grandchildren are going to need lawyers.
See, my dad wasn't no judge, and if he talked to the NYPD like that, he would have been sharing a cell with me. But just like black suburban kids, if I stepped out of my hood or you stepped out of your neighborhood, and that protection against racism and discrimination is gone, that's where you get your Negro wake-up call. So my point is, some black people, especially the wealthy suburban ones, rarely experience racism, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. For some reason, once some blacks get a little bit of money, they start to forget that the world sees them as black. Candace Owen is a perfect example. They use talking heads like her to discuss the average black American experience, when the truth is, she hasn't had the average black American experience. Quick story time. At one of my past companies, when I got hired, I had to sit through the standard human resource orientation. And in this orientation, people shared their stories, and a gay man got up and shared his story of when he first started working at the company. One of his supervisors tried to pray the gay away. The supervisor got water from the water fountain, prayed over it, called him in his office, and sprinkled water on him. When the gay man asked him what he was doing, he simply said, "I'm trying to pray the gay away." Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard this story, I busted out laughing. And everybody looked at me like I was bugging.
We ain't looking at you like you bugging, man. You bugging, man.
But I never knew that this was a thing, because I'm not a gay man. So, I don't know what their struggles are, but I tell you one thing I would never do is act like their struggles don't exist just because I don't understand it or I haven't experienced it, because this becomes a problem when black suburban kids say dumb things like,
why can't those poor black kids pull themselves up by their bootstrap?
When we all know we didn't start this race on an even playing field.
Shoulder to shoulder, take off your backpacks. Basketball, line up, we're about to race. Hey, we are racing for a $100 bill. The winner of this race will take this. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home.
And we know how this ends. Did you have private education? I did, and you didn't. Did you have paid tutoring? Because I did. Did you ever have to worry about your phone being cut off? Did you ever have to worry about where your next meal would come from? Did you have to help mom or dad with the bills? None of these apply to me, which makes me an anomaly, not the rule. So if I got up here and started acting like racism didn't exist, that would be ignorant of me. Because the truth is, the friends I grew up with that sold drugs, they were just as smart as me. And I believe 100% with different circumstances, they could have been just as successful. And looking at this challenge, if I did this challenge, I'd stand right beside the white folks.
I want you guys up here in the front just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done.
But notice that there are also some white people standing next to the blacks. Those are the poor white people. We call them rednecks. They usually feel insulted when you talk about white privilege, because just like the poor blacks, they haven't experienced white privilege, even though they're white.
Amazing.
So they hate that statement, and it's because they don't know what it really means. The term white privilege simply means you're not poor because you're white. Race didn't play a factor, but obviously other factors did. And contrary to popular belief, there are more white Americans in this country, so there are more poor white Americans than blacks. This video is not to get political, but oftentimes Republicans get these poor whites fired up by telling them that it's the minorities taking their jobs, it's the immigrants, and the Democrats are no better. They blame racism and discrimination on why blacks can't get ahead, when the truth is, both sides could simply pass laws and create programs that would benefit poor families, not handouts. Programs like the one I went to, Harlem Children's Zone, a nonprofit organization that took us on college tours, gave me a job, put money in my pocket for things my parents wouldn't buy and couldn't afford to buy, like Gucci shoes.
You're kidding, right?
I'm not kidding. This program kept kids off the streets, so there was no need for selling drugs. You worked after school, so there was rarely any time to get in trouble. We got paid to learn skills that could help us in the future. I helped edit my first video in 10th grade, I believe. Before YouTube was even a thing, we edited this video on VHS. They had the equipment for us to do it. I learned about stock trading, computers, we played sports, painted murals, all types of things. So why don't we have programs like this all over the US? It's because it costs money. Why don't we have free college education? Or forget college, why don't we have free trade schools? It's because it costs money. Why don't we have tax incentives for families to stay together? It's because it costs money. What about healthcare? What about the money? It costs money. But you know what we got money for? War. We got money for war. But I digress. The saddest part about black suburban kids is that they grow up to become black suburban adults. I can't lie. I'm not a black suburban kid, but I'm kind of a black suburban adult. And the problem with this is we will probably never inspire the next generation of blacks. And some black suburban adults don't care because they don't relate to them. So they'll go off and become doctors and lawyers, and their peers will ask, what's wrong with the blacks? they'll wonder why the urban kid only looks up to the rapper and the athlete. And it's simple. It's because that's all they know. When black people get some money, including me, I am a part of the problem. When I got my money, I never looked back.
I was the one said I wasn't the kind of nigga make a little money and run to the suburbs. Yeah, you right. That's what I said. But as soon as I got my check, I was gone.
Yeah, y'all done robbed me one too many times. I ain't coming back. All jokes aside, when everything was segregated back in the day, blacks were starting to thrive. I know that's tough to hear, but it's true. There were more black-owned businesses because we couldn't use the white businesses. So there were more people to look up to than the rappers and the athletes, because we all lived amongst each other. Because remember, we couldn't live with the whites. My dad, if he was a janitor, lived right next door to your dad, who was a doctor, lawyer, or an entrepreneur. There was no suburbs, so even though my father didn't become a doctor, I knew it was possible because people who looked like me and lived right next to me were doing it. And if I needed a mentor, your dad, the doctor, could mentor me. But when successful blacks nowadays, like me and my peers, moved out of our neighborhoods, we never looked back. And then we wonder why all the kids from our hoods wanted to be rappers and athletes. And it's simply because that's all they see. But for us to change the black stereotypical image, we must help each other. We must work together, not separate from one another. We must build businesses, rebuild our communities so we can all live together. We have to invest in our old neighborhoods and cut back on spending money outside of our neighborhoods. And when we achieve this, there will be no more hoods and suburban kids. And we better start soon because judging by the economy, it's almost too late. But it's not too late to learn why black men and black women are lost. So check this next video out.